虽然他们要求我还要给大家讲英语，但实际上我有点紧张，所以我觉得讲英语也好啊。所以我以后要讲这个英文的。Okay, I read a few years ago in a magazine, a scientific magazine, about the curiosity gene. I called it 好奇基因. They had done some studies on some small animals and found that some individuals were more likely to be curious than their peers and the rest. And this made a lot of sense to me because I see humans also as a race, a species that really wants to explore. And I explore through climbing. And so I think that maybe this desire is programmed into us in some way on a cellular level in our genes. Because the thing I love most about climbing is that I can go out and explore places that people have never been to before. That I can touch a rock that no one has touched before, or put my foot on this piece of ice for the first time. And China has a lot of these mountains, probably more than anywhere in the world. If you look in Xinjiang province, you have the whole Tian Shan range. You also have the eastern Kulin Shan. In Tibet, there's the Nanqing Tangula, which is a big range that hardly has been explored. And now where I live in Chengdu, all of western Sichuan and northwest Yunnan all have a lot of unexplored mountains. This beautiful drawing here is of an area which I'm sure some of you have been to called Siguniangshan. Has anyone been there? Okay, in Bipango. And I'm sure some people have also maybe even gone there climbing. Just a couple months ago, we went to do a new route on a mountain in this area, on this mountain right here. Now, most people see this picture or mountain and they think, oh, that's beautiful. Maybe you find it attractive, or maybe you find it forbidding. Forbidding means, oh, it's beautiful, but I never want to go there. I think that's a very a normal reaction. When I look at that mountain, the first thing I saw was this line right there. For me, that was beauty. One single line of ice for 1,000 meters from the very bottom to the very top. So climbing is a lot like if you have a mathematical problem or a puzzle, there might be several ways you can solve it, right? There's the ugly ways, and then there's good ways. But often, there's only one elegant solution. And I think in the climbing the same way. What's the problem? The problem is that I want to get from the bottom to the top, but the method is the most important. And the elegant solution to this mountain is that one thing, that trail you saw right there. So that's what I see. I see, oh, I want to go climb that. That is aesthetically beautiful. What do I also see? I also say analyze the rock. Is it granite or is it choss? What type of rock is it? And I see between the two peaks there, oh, I guess it'd be this way, huh? Oh, no, this way. That piece of ice, and I say, oh, don't go under there. That's avalanche. So I think my way of looking at mountains has all been distorted and a little perverted. But I think that's normal for a climber. So I went with my friend Marcus, who actually used to live here in Shanghai, and we went to climb that route. And we had a wonderful time. It was a lot of fun, and it was challenging. And if you can see to the picture, who can see two small people there? My eyes are not that good anymore. I'm over 40 years old. There, we'll try to make it a little clearer for you. Okay, do you see them now? So we spent 3 days almost on the face in this way. Marcus is up top. I'm actually now the person below. This is how I love to climb personally. But I think climbing, just in general, in terms of climbing, is you could say it's a selfish sport. This picture I took in the year 2000. after I had come down from making the summit of Mount Nanting Tangula near Lhasa in Tibet, in Xizang. We had come down 3 weeks on the mountain. I woke up early before sunrise, and I went to this small hermitage. I walked like half an hour over here, and I started taking pictures of this hermitage when the sun was coming up. And it was at that time that I started thinking about what is the more significance of the sport of climbing, and how can it be more meaningful to you, to our children. And I think now I'm going to give us some examples. Here is, these are blue sheep. In Chinese, it's called yanyang. And they live actually mostly only in China, in Tibet, and in Sichuan. I often see them when I go up into the mountains. They live above 4,500 meters, normally above 4,000 meter elevation. They are a protected species. However, 2 times we have bumped into people who were hunting them and had killed them. At one time, they offered to give me some to eat. Of course, this is not allowed, right? How they capture them is with a snare, the metal like this, which is in a turf, and then you tie it to a bush or a rock at about this height, and supposedly the sheep comes through with its neck. The neck gets caught around, and then it can't move. And then it slowly dies a slow death until the person comes up. So I find these very often still when I go into the mountains. And this is, if you're a climber, these are the only things you're going to pretty much find if you're a climber. But what I do is I cut them away and then throw them. But one time when I was walking, and I fell, tripped, and actually almost went down a cliff. And I realized that I had been snared on my foot. So this is one thing that we see often when we are climbing. Another thing that we saw, everybody knows about how the glaciers in the world are shrinking, right? We all hear about that on the news. The big thing was about Antarctica, a big piece of glacier, which was going to flow out to sea, right? Through climbing, I actually see in a real time the glaciers shrinking. And this, of course, is due to global warming. So I get to see in the mountains what global warming does in a real-time way. And I think this is very significant because it really drives home or makes you think about what we're doing to this planet. This is a glacier, and of course you can see the stream coming out of the glacier. And the first time I came here, the streams were small and there was a lot of ice. The last time I went, several years later, when I went to, this is a glacier on Mount Chershan, which is also in western Sichuan province. The last time I went there were parts of glacier already gone, and the rock bed below, the bedrock below was exposed. Rock that had probably not seen sunlight for tens of thousands of years. And climbing is actually becoming now more dangerous because of global warming and the melting of the glaciers. This is a small hermitage at 4,600 meter elevation near Mount Yamalong, also in Sichuan, which we happened to come to and spend the night. And the local people, of course Tibetan, invite us in to participate in the ceremony. And then the next day, the Lama told me all about the sacred mountains around. He's saying that mountain is sacred in the name, and that mountain is sacred in why, and this and that. And I thought he knew we were going climbing, and I thought he would say, the mountain you're climbing is sacred. You cannot go climb it. But he said, it's sacred, but it's not sacred in that way, so have a great, safe climb. Hope to see you again. But when you go climbing, you're always in contact with a lot of local people. And I have learned more about probably the mountains through them and traditions and customs than I could ever have learned anywhere else. And I think that is also very important. And I would never have been able to do that if I wasn't a climber. Unfortunately, there are a lot of negative impacts to climbing as well. This is the base camp of Cherishan. As you can see, there's a lot of garbage. In 2004, me and a climber named Maihua made the second ascent of the mountain, but we climbed it and we made a report about it, and so the following year, other climbers started coming from all over China. And so very quickly, there was a lot of garbage all over the mountain. And I felt personally responsible for that because I was the person that originally helped establish this mountain for climbing. Now that there was garbage all over places, there are not too many places in this world where there are no people that are still completely pristine. As climbers, we can go to these places. We're able to go to these places. But we also have to respect them. In the United States now, there are some mountains which have so many climbers, 10,000, 20,000 a year. And what do climbers do on the mountain? There are no bathrooms, right? So you just go down and come back. Where does it go? It goes in the snow. It's so cold, it stays there, and then it slowly goes down the mountain. Now, where do all rivers start from? The mountain, a glacier, right? And where do those rivers flow? They flow to reservoirs where water we drink. There's so many people on some mountains now in North America, Mount Rainier and others, Mount Whitney, that they require you to bring what they call a wag bag. I don't know what it actually means up there. It's like a Ziploc baggie. And you have to go in, take it, and put it in your backpack and carry it down the mountain. You're not allowed to leave it there. And so when you get there, you have to deal with it properly. Okay. Actually, Tina mentioned Banjifeng. Banjifeng is now getting so popular that I think soon that could start to be a problem here in China. I don't know how many of you heard about the accident on Mount Everest, Jumalama, this spring, where 16 of the Sherpas died in an avalanche. I'm sure a lot of people heard about that. Sherpas are actually descendants from Tibetans, and they were traditionally the workforce or the work people on Mount Everest, on the south side and the Nepal side of Mount Everest. And there is, from base camp up to Camp 2, there's a very dangerous part of the route. It's called, there's the Khumbu Ice Fall. And there are a group of these the Sherpas, which they call the Ice Fall Doctors. And they're very strong, but they don't have much actual climbing experience. And they're responsible for putting the ropes in and the ladders and everything so that these clients who pay $50,000 each can go up and go summit Mount Everest. This year, when the Sherpa Icefall Doctors were setting the route, a big avalanche came down, and it killed 16 of them in one go. All the Sherpas on Mount Everest decided, out of respect for them, that they were not going to work anymore. But if the Sherpas do not work, none of these commercial expeditions, none of these clients who pay $50,000 can get to the summit. But another reason they decide not to work is because over the last few years, they get very low pay, they work hard, and they don't get much respect at all. You think, if you had to pay $50,000, what is the Sherpa? How does he see that? That's a lot of money. So a lot of it was also because because of the exploitation of their services. And they said, I quit this year. And nobody could climb. I thought that was really good, actually. So traditionally, climbers have also, in a lot of ways, taken advantage of the local people in that way. So I think as climbers, we have the unique perspective. We get to see things that people never go see. We get to go to places we never get to go to. And thus, we have a responsibility we have a privilege. This is a privilege that we can go there. But with privilege comes responsibility. We have a responsibility to protect those places. And our unique perspective makes it that we can do that in many different ways. In many, many different ways. So we can do it by helping educate people about species protection, because we saw how they kill the blue sheep. We can do it by educating people and having people learn about climate change, because we've seen it with our own eyes, right? We can do it by going and actually helping the local people who live in these areas and make their living from the mountains, maybe through education and other ways. So those are all very important, and these are things that actually climbers are all doing now, and I think is what makes the sport of climbing very valuable and meaningful for me now. We're all guests on the mountain, but eventually we must go home, and we want to leave it how we found it. We will always keep exploring because, and I will keep exploring through climbing because I think it's in my genes. But we must do so in a very responsible way, and then through that we can have the most fun and let our children and our children's children enjoy the mountains just the way I did for many generations to come. So that's the end. Thank you.